content or whatever. Like
Oh, being asked where you live. Is that bad? It's like, right? It's like, why do you want to know where I live? Yes.
I'm pretty sure it doesn't do
Yeah, sure. I think that's a good way to put it. Invasive personal
There's
questions.
even times too where I've seen people like strike on their own content.
maybe like pressuring, like expecting a certain answer.
Like constant badgering and then you
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll definitely.
Relatives.
contact people.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Or friends.
What's up? Long time back to say.
You guys have had to deal with it. I feel like you also have to deal with this a lot.
Is it like harassment online or is it harassment just in
Stalking and cyberstalking.
harassment, like saying stuff about your body. Oh, you're looking really nice today, young lady.
Is that what's called nagging?
It's like
It's like nagging with an E.
it's like
I have a feeling that
Oh, interesting.
Flattering
I
them.
don't know what it is.
it's like one of those things that
I'm trying to look into it, but I don't know. It's just something.
I feel like it's something that Barney sits in.
I think Josh is
It's the harmless one. It's like, oh, like, tell her she's bad.
Yeah, so she needs approval.
I don't know what
Is it nagging?
I don't know.
Hey, you joining us? Jump in. Jump in and contribute to our harassment.
They like posting stuff about you.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
control is
Would a slash count under like unwanted like features?
Maybe.
Yeah. Well, I need more room.
maybe
Sorry.
we don't know. I think Jersey might have changed something on that mixer. So because basically, if he's like goes to the last ones, it doesn't work anymore. I switched it out with a different cable. It doesn't change it. So I'm pretty sure that it's not the cable. They probably made some settings. I don't know what they are.
Oh, one artist.
So I can text Josh. See if he knows.
Yes. Oh, embarrassment is yours?
I don't even know anymore.
Okay, I'll have Potter talk to their appraiser, see what they change.
Sure. And basically, all I know is right now it comes on here. So yeah, there's just a way we can get that right.
So not proportionate.
It's genetic, probably.
He's walking. I'm not doing it. He's walking. It's not bored.
So it just took it down.
Oh, it's
normally they'll let you at least play it out. They just won't save it for music.
This is what I used to do with my action.
You need to do like some like trippy overlay so that like you can't detect, or it might be audio match too, right?
Yeah,
just like
exactly.
oh yeah, flourishing media guy Mike.
Dang, we good? There's definitely more though.
Yes, look, it's physical abuse.
Let's see, platforms that control happen on Instagram, Facebook. I want to
Or even like sitting up here and there,
Sure, yeah.
receiving that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Like the heebie-jeebies, like the notes there. Yeah.
You guys have a minute left, and each group, you guys talk about who's going to do the report back in the big group. 1 minute left, and each group talk about who's going to do the report back.
Rock, paper, scissors. Rock, paper, scissors. Oh yeah, except for June, because she knows. Yeah. Rock, paper, scissors.
I think we're all gonna vote.
Yeah.
Why?
I don't know.
I was already on stage. People are sick of watching. Oh my god.
Your chance, your debut.
Don't you guys stand in front of a classroom?
I do that every day.
Taylor present.
Yeah, the Taylor
Something is bad. Okay.
Time's up. Did you guys all this time?
You're like,
Who's going to do the report
looking at
back?
this lesson.
Yeah, great. Okay, let's start. Or do you guys want to come up and no, right? Okay. It's fine. Okay, group one. Whoever's gonna do the report back, stand up and just like tell us. Do you need a mic?
You're not working on
Oh, it's like one at a time. I thought we were all going out together.
Number one. And our category was physical abuse. And here are some examples we came up with. Shoving or pushing, hitting, striking, bruising, holding or grabbing, roughness, injury and death, throwing objects, and to kind of catch everything you can think of, anything that causes physical harm. Number two, sexual abuse.
So we are group 2, sexual abuse, but rape, so very physical, kind of force unwanted, which is also unwanted physical contact, solicitation, exploitation, which is kind of more broad, what could be exploitation of certain people when we don't want it. Pressure, sadomasochism, BDSM, big issue with rape, things like that, which kind of also ties into human trafficking. Exposure to unwanted sexual content, such as pornography or other things that the other party might not want to be looking at or hearing about. Verbal harassment, catcalling, things like that. Cyber abuse, sexting, sending pictures that's limited to you that were for the world, which others to the world. That's it.
Okay, so for us, group 3, we have verbal and emotional. So a couple things we kind of wrote down is belittling, that's the first one. Emotional manipulation, verbal threats, that's more forceful stuff. Yelling, that's maybe related. Insensitive jokes and comments, kind of disregarding another person's sensitive issues, whatever. Also blaming and dismissive and isolation, which is like not talking to them, putting up a wall, etc. So yeah, that's what we got.
We had psychological abuse. First one we have is gaslighting, as she said, embarrassing them or humiliating them, and then making them dependent on you. For example, saying like you'll never find someone better than me. Silent treatment or ignoring, threatening them to harm them or their loved ones, guilt tripping, being whipped, and calling them names.
Economic abuse. So some examples: trying to control a partner's finances, withholding money, guilting the partner to buy things for them, gold digger, high allowance in like a marriage, controlling of assets, blackmailing, giving money for us. Oh yeah, guilt tripping, lying, and manipulation.
Of course.
Over here we have spiritual abuse, which we thought was kind of difficult because we weren't sure if that's actually attacking someone's spiritual life or just abuse that happens within a church or spiritual structure. So the first one that we just went over, using verses and scriptures out of context to justify abusive actions. Also preventing someone from actually going to church, which we've seen. And on the flip side, when you're in a church structure or a spiritual organization, getting shunned. So I think a lot of cults and churches do that. Also within the church structure, abusing your organizational power, whether it's bullying or just pushing people to physical exhaustions against their will, in the name of serving God. And then lastly, aren't you a good Christian? You can't say no. Kind of using scripture or principles to manipulate people's behavior. So,
Alright, hello. We had cyber stalking and harassment. We put up being stared at, following everything on social media, including creating a fake account to do so, showing up uninvited, invasive personal questions such as how much do you weigh? Oh, where do you live? Where are you from? And then constant badgering even though you say no, non-stop calling and texting, contacting your family and friends. I didn't know that was news to me. Publicly posting / saying things about you, and non-consented pics and videos.
Thank you. Wow, that was really great. And everything that you shared or reported, if this clicker works. It's pretty slow.
Sorry.
Sorry, it's far.
Okay. I don't know what to do anymore, but can you go back if you can? Oh, here. So this is actually called Power and Control Wheel. It is basically summarizing everything that you shared.
right? What is really important when it comes to domestic violence or unhealthy relationship is that one person has a complete power and control over their partners. And there can, like I said, it's a pattern of behavior. So there are so many different behaviors that can be counted or considered as domestic violence. And also, one thing that I want to share is that sometimes one person is given a seat or position of power without knowing, unintentionally. So I often share this when I go to EM or English ministry churches, because this is a case that I see from our survivors that we help out. Usually wives are the ones from Korea. Oftentimes they do not speak good English. They do not have family members here, and they do not know how U.S. system works. But on the other hand, a perpetrator or abusers, they are the ones who grew up here. They speak better English. Maybe they are educated here, so they do know how system works here. So even though the husband do not try to control his wife, automatically he sits in the position of power. So this is something that I want you guys to understand. So for this relationship to be healthier and be more equal, it takes time and effort. I just wanted to mention that. And why do we have to know about this? Domestic violence. I mean, I don't want to believe that my church has violence. Why do we have to know that? Because it happens. Next. Every 9 seconds in the United States, a woman is assaulted or beaten. Next. In 2005, really outdated report, over 1,000 women were murdered by an intimate partner, and that's an average of 3 women every day. And also when we think about our agency, right, we help about 150 to 200 survivors a year, right? And also when I had a conversation with the officer in Olympic Division, LAPD officer in an Olympic Division, in 2018, there were more than 1,000 domestic violence reports only in the K-Town area. But domestic violence is known as a crime that is underreported. So he was estimating about 8,000 to 9,000 cases, DV cases happening in K-Town. Right? That's a lot of number. And also my personal experience. A little bit about me. I do go to church, and I even served in my old church for a long time. And until I started working in the domestic violence department, I didn't know that violence happened at a church, right? But it didn't take too long for me to start seeing familiar faces, like chifanis and deacons in my church. And I just realized that it was not that my church didn't have the violence, but it was me who weren't able to see it, right? So that means violence happens, and hopefully not, but it happens. I just want you to be able to see that when it happens. I'm not saying that it happens in church, but it could be your neighborhood, your friends. I don't know. It happens, right? And why don't they leave, right? We talked briefly earlier. Why don't survivors or victims leave the relationship? There could be a lot of reasons. Fear, guilt, culture, social norm, love, lack of option, sorry for my typo, children, lack of support, victim blaming, isolation. There are so many barriers why survivors or victims cannot leave the relationship. It is really hard. Right? And now I want to talk about culture. Have you guys heard of toxic masculinity? Right? Do you guys know what that is? Right? Toxic masculinity is basically is the false idea of how men should behave. It literally promotes violence by creating stereotypes of men. Guys, we have to be strong. We have to lead. We have to dominate. We never cry. But who defines that, right? So toxic masculinity really fosters or justify guys being dominant and trying to control the relationship with their partners. And second is traditional patriarchal culture. You guys all know what patriarchy is, right? Okay, so the patriarchy is basically the system that gives power to men, devalue women, and eventually justify men's oppression towards women. And I was born and raised in Korea, and I grew up in that system, right? Whenever we had a New Year's or Thanksgiving, we all gathered in my grandma's house, we ate together, we spent time together, but my mom and me and the other aunts, we were stuck in the kitchen, cooking and clearing and do all the house chores. When my brother and my father was staying in a room watching TV. I found it really unfair, but that's how my family was, right? And whenever we ate too, my dad and my brother and all the uncles and grandpa, they ate in a room, right? And my mom and myself, we ate in the living room. We ate separately. That's how my family was like, right? And also, I want to share a few Asian traditional proverbs about women. If you guys ever heard women and dried fish taste good when battered every 3 days?
Whoa. That's so messed up. Oh my god.
So messed up. Yeah. What about this? If a woman talks too much, the family will be ruined. Yeah. What about this? Even though wives are wise, they should never participate in outside work. And there's one from China. We buy good friends by selling wives. That's basically what the patriarchy really thinks about women. Really fostering violence, right? Against women. And this is why we call domestic violence gender-based violence. I'm not saying that there is male survivors. There is. I personally have experience working with male survivors. But this term gender-based violence really reflects the idea that violence often serves to maintain structural gender inequality. I'm not saying that there is no male survivors, because there is. I'm just saying that a lot of times it is usually women and girls who is victimized. And that's why we call domestic violence gender-based violence. A little bit more about culture, family-oriented culture. A lot of Asian culture puts family before individuals, right? And in our culture too, domestic violence is a family matter, and we do not let other people get involved, right? And also, or seeking for help or sharing the hardships about my family, it means that bringing disgrace to my family, right? Oftentimes, victims of domestic violence, they are forced to stay quiet and endure the pain herself, because once she speaks up about the violence that she experiences, our family reputation goes down, right? And one last thing is your experience growing up. Witnessing violence between one's parents or caretaker is the strongest risk factor of transmitting violent behavior from one generation to the next. Physical abuse during childhood increases the risk of future victimization among women and the risk of future perpetration of abuse by men more than twofold. So can you guys guess, now I work for the survivors of domestic violence, right? Can you guess what my career goal was when I was in Korea? I came here when I was 16, but when I was in Korea, can you guess what my career goal was? Teacher? Doctor, lawyer, okay. Other people? Don't be surprised. Do you guys know what 현모양처 is? You're laughing, Esther. Do you guys know what 현모양처 is? No. 현모양처 means good wife and wise mother. That was my career goal. So my dream was to become a good wife and wise mother, right? And I shared a little bit about the family that I grew up with, right? Do you guys, does it connect? Mm-hmm. And statistically, the girls grew up in a violent family. It's more likely for her to grow up to be a victim of domestic violence, and for boys, it is more likely for him to become a perpetrator. And there are so many studies supporting this idea or statement. And okay, then what does it take to have healthy family, healthy relationship? First, you have to know yourself first, but not just yourself, but we have to know my partner as well, right? Communication with your partner, especially when it comes to feelings. It is hard to talk about our feelings, right? But it is really important to be able to have conversation with your partner about your feelings, even though it means that you become vulnerable. Respect difference, other person's opinion and feelings, and find solutions to disagreements that work for both partners. Not just, you're not going to change your partner, we just have to find a way to meet in the middle, right? You're not going to be able to change your partner, you shouldn't, unless it is criminal related activity, right? And this is equality will. Basically, it is the opposite of what power and control will had. The will summarizes how equal, healthy relationships should look like. There's equality in the middle, non-threatening behaviors, respect, a lot of good behaviors in there. And as a church, what do we have to do in order to foster healthy relationship for victims of domestic violence? Education is a key. It is really important to know that because it might happen, hopefully not, right? But when there is a victims of domestic violence in your congregation, you have to be able to help or offer help or be able to identify that. So education is really important. And do not feel awkward to talk about it. KFAM has been providing domestic violence education to clergy or churches for so many years. And domestic violence and sexual assault is not our favorite topic to talk about, right? Because we don't want to acknowledge that violence might be happening in our church, right? We just don't talk about something negative, but we should. And be aware that gender-based violence can happen everywhere. Know the sign, and also when we identify the survivors or victims of domestic violence, be able to offer help, like resources and stuff. And that is it. So thank you. It is definitely quiet, but my email address here, and also we have a hotline. And on the way out, on your right, there is a brochure. I brought my brochure, magnet, whatever that can help you. And also, a pen and the stress ball. So feel free to take it. I brought a lot, enough for everyone. So please take them. I haven't used it for a while because of COVID. So feel free to take it. You can take two. Either that pen is a purple pen. So I love it. So feel free to take it as much as you want as well. Before I end, is there any question? Oh, yes.
I think it's a great thing that you came out and support the pastor because the last church I was going to, the man was a deacon in the church. But every Sunday, all day through the week, the family didn't know that he was abusing her. So that day she couldn't take it no more to tell her testimony. But Mama, I'm going to the same thing when you are a deacon and you're praising the Lord, I'm in your church. I'm going to the same thing. I really was disappointed. But then you disappoint me when I'm in your church trying to get help. But I was glad that she found the strength to leave, but she tells her story, what how long was it going on before the family normally got nobody didn't even know, so they were surprised themselves that they had a family and got kids. So
I really applaud you for coming to the church to help us, bring insight to it, that if anything, we could reach to fast, especially that for me, I know so it may not be easy, but I'm glad that we get to my fast, I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Because I'm Christian too, and also 70 to 80% of our survivors are Christian. And sometimes we help the clergy members as well, as Samoanims, right? And so I know that it happens in the faith community, even though I don't want to see that. So this is the work, my favorite work that I do. That I do with church, educating church and bringing awareness. So thank you for having me here. Thank you.